YouTube, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host TKK and we are back with another video, guys. Today we are going to be looking at some behind the scenes content. Now, on the previous video that I posted about this particular topic and hobby, this is my Chewlix slash Vewlix. Part 3 was posted. There's a part 1 and a part 2 where I did a full teardown for the most part to customize this. Within video 3, I asked and I got enough engagement within the comment section and through DMs on a couple of my social media platforms that I use, with people telling me, hey, go ahead and post some content about what I asked about. That question that I asked was if you wanted to get some behind the scenes content on the computer that I chose to use inside of this, to let me know. And that's what this video is going to be about. Now, let me let you guys know right now what you can expect here, because this is going to be fresh shot content. I did record some stuff prior. It was too much filler talking time, guys. And I want to get straight to the point with my talking points on what this is. So right after I roll the intro, we're going to get right into it. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate the support. The engagement is the most important thing, especially with a video like this. And for me, it's a very niche thing just because I'm not well renowned in the space of doing computing stuff. But, you know, I have been asked by quite a few people about this type of stuff. And so I think that this is going to be a great video that'll tie into anybody looking to build them a cabinet or get them a cabinet established, or any person that's just looking for something more minimalistic from a performance and price perspective, who just wants to do a build. Now, we're not going to be super intuitive with this one, going through all the different parts and things like that that you'll need. We'll just talk about like kind of what I have here. And in video 3 of this series with my arcade cabinet, I did encompass like what the specs were. And so right here, I just want to kind of line you up more as to what you can expect here, just so that, you know, I'm not, I don't know, promising you more than what I'm actually going to give you. So I am going to take this apart. This is actually a test bench. So for those that didn't see the video, this piece of wood comes with the cabinet, right? So this wood comes with the cabinet, and it makes it very seamless for me to be able to just position the test bench on top of it and slide it in. I do encourage you to check the video out if you haven't seen it, how I actually got it put into the system. So this is a PC test bench. That's what this acrylic like material is. Very minimalistic. This is essentially designed for you to be able to put a computer together if you're a builder, and if you just want to be in a position where you can kind of like test systems, because this is a full build, right? So what you see here is literally what you would see in your traditional form factor of a computer, except it will be more upright like that, with the PSU or the power supply unit being positioned in the back or the rear of the computer case. So because this was an arcade cabinet, I didn't want to get myself a case and force myself into a position where, you know, I had something that would not fit into the aesthetic of the cabinet, because the cabinet doesn't have a ton of space. I just elected to go with an open test bench because I knew it would work. So what I did was I started by just measuring the dimensions of the test bench when it was fully assembled. And I seen that, you know, it was within the width of fitting on this piece of wood, which I knew this wood was just easily accessible, easy removable. And so that right there just made it all simple for me. So from there, I just started to take some old parts, because I am actually pretty enthusiastic with computers. And I'll take this moment to answer a question. I had one subscriber that asked me, how did I get so knowledgeable? Or the way he worded it was, how did I get so knowledgeable about computer stuff? And to be honest with you, I'm self-taught. And back in 2000, I want to say 15, there were some people that laughed at me, to be honest with you. And I've told this story to people that know me personally, but I put a computer together and the cable management. I made a mistake in putting too much thermal paste. And so I took it somewhere to get it fixed, because I just couldn't get the computer to boot up. It was just something simple I didn't plug up the right way. And the dudes kind of laughed, and it wasn't like a malicious thing, but you know, it made me feel some kind of way. And to be honest with you, after that, I was like, these motherfuckers gonna be asking me for help. Excuse my language, but that's literally the approach I had. And so now I'm pretty much the guy. Like, yeah. So to answer that question, if you happen to be seeing this, or if anybody else was wondering like, yo, man, how did he get into this stuff? It's just really, I went ahead and got myself just well versed with everything. So what I'm doing is just taking this thing apart, and this isn't really going to be a how-to build, but as I'm having this talking time with you guys, I will end up putting this thing together on camera for you, just so that you can take a look at it. And by the way, if you're interested in this test bench, I will put it in the description of this video so that you can take a look at everything that you would need to order this. Now, I am not one of those type of YouTubers, and I'm not saying that I have a problem with it, because maybe I'll get there someday. I am not the guy that has the affiliated links. So if I'm telling you guys to look to a place to buy something, it's merely just because I'm telling you, hey, this is where I ordered, you know, such and such from. So I'm going to go ahead and get this taken apart. We'll take a look at everything that I've got here. We'll have some more talking points, and then we'll come back to a point where I can go ahead and put this together on camera for you guys. Okay, guys, so let's just take a look at this thing. I've removed the motherboard. As you can see, it's over here. So briefly, let's talk about the specs on this. This is an Asus motherboard. You can see from this logo, it's a Strix. This is a Z390. The Z390 is of the 9th generation technology, 8th and 9th generation. So Z290 would have been 8th generation, 390 was 9th generation, 490 10th generation, 590 11th generation, 690 12th generation, and 790 14th generation. And it just kind of goes from there. 13th generation, excuse me. Z90 being the latest. That's with the 13th generation. I just recently shared some technology already in a video of my current build. So I've had this for a few years. This has an Asus Z390 with an Intel i9 9900K processor. The cooler that's on this is a Noctua low profile cooler. So it's designed where it can fit pretty much in the most snug of areas. On the channel, I've also featured a home theater PC build that I think was helpful for quite a few people. It was certainly for myself. Figuring that out, going with the low profile cooler makes it so that you can fit some heavy components into a nice tight snug space. Let's move on from there. This motherboard can support quite a bit of RAM, but in its orientation, guys, we got 16 gigs of RAM. This is DDR4. So that's the DDR4 is going to be the generation of RAM. We're now currently on 5, but I digress. This is DDR4. This is inexpensive RAM. This RAM is like $60, but this is some RAM that I had laying around. So these two go in slots 2 and 4, okay? This motherboard can support tons of different connections, but all we're going to be doing is just using this for gaming. So I pulled out an NVIDIA Founders Edition being called that because this is actually manufactured by NVIDIA. This is like their card. This isn't an Asus. This is not an Asus or PNY or an EVGA. I'm just trying to be very descriptive if you may need this information, but this is a baseline card that's good for 1080p gaming. This setup is used for gaming, fighting game, emulation, and some Steam titles. Now, the reasoning that you would want to go with a decent graphics card and a decent processor in a setup like this is if you guys are planning on streaming, capturing the content, keeping in mind, the parts that you pick have to be strong enough not only to produce the gameplay desires that you have. In my case, 60 frames per second is all I need, right? But it also needs to be able to manage streaming. Streaming is heavily going to be held by your CPU, and then the gaming, for the most part, your GPU, graphics card, central processing unit. So again, you have to be just conscious of what titles you will be playing. Certain games obviously going to require more or less, but fighting games don't take a lot. And when you're gaming on PC, if you're playing actual PC games, you do have the ability to go in and adjust the settings, unlike with consoles where everything is pretty much made for what the specs of the console are. Hopefully this is informative. If you guys don't understand what I'm saying, just ask me a question. But again, I'm trying to describe what I'm talking about in a way where you can articulate this. Now, in my arcade video, part 3 with the Chewlix Vewlix, I showed you guys a solid state drive. I modified my needs. I went from a 250 gig to a 1 terabyte. This is an M.2 NVMe drive, okay? The motherboard has to be able to support this. Most modern motherboards are going to do this. This is also the same kind of drive that's in the PlayStation 5. This is a generation 3 and there it's a generation 4. The difference is, you know, the motherboard needs to be able to read it and it is faster. So again, this drive right here houses everything I need for the computer, Windows, fightcade, and a plethora of different games if I need to. Again, if I'm going to be using this to stream or capture the content, I can. You want to make sure that you're picking as much storage as you can get. So this is literally the only drive that I have. There are in this board 2 slots. There's a slot here. So as you can see how this key lines up to there. You see that? That's how that works. There's also the slot here. This is going to be the primary. So this will end up just plugging in here. And then this shield that has a little bit of gooey material to keep it cool, because this drive will get hot really quick. This keeps it cool, guys. That's really important. So this will go like this. It'll fit on top of there and it'll bolt in with these 2 small screws right here. So these screws will go here. Again, this is not really a how-to, but just kind of walking you through some of the different things. All right, so got you guys kind of a side angle. This hasn't been cleaned in a very long time. So just dusting this off, because once I put this in, that's pretty much going to be it for it. This thing is going in there and that's going to be that. So get this RAM installed, which is plug and play. Half of computing building is just you having the confidence that you need to be able to get your parts in there. It's part selection too. Like, a lot of people are challenged by the intelligence piece of it, just not knowing what you need. And it's understandable, man, because if you don't keep up with the stuff, there's a lot of different things that could come out, and it might leave you just, I don't know, in a disarray where you just feel like you're not very confident based on what it is you're looking at or looking for. I happen to be extremely well versed with this stuff, and I have for a long time. I was actually partially raised by my uncle. He played a big contributing factor into my development early on in life. Growing up, he was always into technology, and so even some of you guys that may remember, like my older channel, my game room, my setup has always been pretty masterful. I've always been an individual that has had multiple setups, you know. It's just always been my thing. So I've always gravitated towards keeping up with that bleeding edge. So I just plugged this, and I hope you guys can see this because I'm not looking at the camera right now. Yeah, you got a good shot. So again, we've got this shield, we'll call it, for the M.2, the NVMe drive. That gooey material doesn't hurt anything. The drive is pushed in, and then these pretty much just screw the drive in place so that it can't be pulled out. Now, Windows and everything is there. That drive will get hot. That gooey material will essentially keep that nice and cool, right? So it's going to give me optimal performance. The RAM is plugged in. Traditionally, your RAM is going to plug in slot 2 and 4. Some motherboards could be different. And then again, I just blew that cooler out. It could be cleaner, but this is all good. So this is pretty much the motherboard. Now, on this motherboard, we've got a ton of SATA cables. Need to make sure we can see. It's going to be right here. I did initially have these plugged in, right? Like with my power supply, I had a ton of cables zip tied into the setup, and I no longer need those. So the way I had these managed was I had these 3 SATA cables there, and that was because I had that 250 gig drive that I plugged into the computer, and then I had 2 mechanical drives. I've decided that all I desire to have is just this one drive. So it really makes my setup seamless. Now, I'm going to be honest, this build in its original form factor was pretty expensive. This processor that's under this cooler was about $600. This motherboard was about $400. So it was $1,000 just for that combination. The RAM is cheap RAM, but the RAM that I had initially was actually this RAM here, right? So it was Corsair Vengeance. It's nice, it's pretty, and there's 64 gigs there. So that RAM was a few $100s. And the Noctua cooler, this low profile cooler, is actually cheap, man. It's around 50 bucks, maybe less. A hard drive that I had in there, I had this thing loaded. Like there was a 2 terabyte here and a 2 terabyte there. It was just loaded up, and you know, I had whatever the latest and greatest graphics card was for this time frame. So this is a really expensive build when you look at like the retail cost, but this stuff is old now. Again, we're on 13th generation. This is 9th generation, so a few years old. So in my case, me being able to just pull from the garage, so to speak, to have like older technology being utilized, it works really well for me. Today's standards, you can build with like an AMD processor or an Intel processor, and you can do anything that's like even an i3. If you're just strictly going to be gaming, the graphics card is going to be the most important piece. Or I would say do like an i5 if you know that you want to be, you know, streaming and gaming. You pretty much, like I said, you want to make sure that your processor can just process doing what you're doing. In this instance, if you're building a cabinet or just looking to play fighting games, they don't take a lot. Like they do not take a lot, guys. So this isn't a really expensive thing. So just be conscious of that piece. So let's just take a deep look into this case. I'm gonna call it a case, even though it's a test bench. So it's a test bench case. So you've got grids here. As I was explaining in my arcade video, the bottom where I have this finger that I'm moving has a hole for you to be able to screw into. So you technically could screw from the bottom. Now I'm not gonna do that because I like the mobility and the portability of this all. But this case is really cool. So it comes with this piece here that just kind of holds the graphics card in place. When you look at this, it's literally like a regular PC case. So all these little dots right here would be like your back, the bottom, like your motherboard IO would go up top, and then everything down here will be for your GPUs, or if you have like capture cards, things like that. They've got the power supply set where you can mount it up here so it's vertically positioned. Airflow is going to be really good. Again, this is an open test bench, so typically you would literally have this like just sitting on your workspace and so forth. This does not feature a reset button, but your power button is right here, right? So your power button is going to be there. There is connectivity for you to be able to route in two USBs as well as your headphone connectivity. Again, this is a case. So just like a traditional PC case, you would have a couple of USB ports. That's going to be there. Some other connections that come from the bottom, like right here where my finger is moving, the power button. Just like when you're traditionally building a computer, you've got these connectors right here that need to go literally into your motherboard. They'll typically be in this vicinity, but on your motherboard, it'll be listed where the power is going to go. So it's plug and play from there. All of these connections right here, they've been done really well. And at this point, I'm kind of like just reviewing this test bench. One is going to be for like your AC audio or HD audio, excuse me. And the other is going to be your USB hub, right? So this guy right here says audio. Audio is typically on the motherboard going to be here. So those pins will align. On the top, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 is missing, and then 5. So when we look at audio, we can see we've got the same type of, like it's just in reverse. So it's the same thing. That's exactly the same, right? So we'll go in just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4 is missing, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 is missing, 5. So it's just plug and play. At this point, it's just managing the cables. Now, all of these grooves right here, you will have to put those in if you decide to go with a test bench like this. Everything that you need is going to come in the package, right? So pretty much what you have to do is kind of trial and error. You would put these, because you can see there's a ton of different holes here, but you would put them in the holes that will align up to where your motherboard is going to be, right? So I got like a hole here, a hole there, a hole here. And so again, a hole here, a hole there, a hole there. So once this gets positioned on there, then all of these screws would go in, right? So all of these screws are designed to just go into there once the motherboard is there. So as you see this, just envision the motherboard is sitting on top of these risers and or standoffs. They're called standoffs. And then you would screw them in just to keep that in place. If that doesn't make any sense, let me know. But again, this is just that behind the scenes if you're trying to build in this. All right, so I want to think so far I've got you guys good. And my recommendation for management cables after you get your standoffs position, this cord, just kind of get it there so the motherboard can go on top of it. You can't see everything, but I'm just trying to get you some type of behind the scenes. This is fresh content. This is not what I had shot originally. I think this is a lot better. So let me get you guys a good look at this. Okay, so previous transition. Now we're following through. Just making sure those holes are lined up. We should be good. We should be good. And now we're just going in to screw these in. Don't be like me and drop your screw, but it is what it is. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I would appreciate a like, some kind of comment. Let me know what you think about this. Engagement is the only way this kind of content can be made. It has to be requested, and then once it's requested, the more impact and engagement we have, the better. But this trend of screwing these in just continues, so I'm gonna get that done. And we got this all screwed in, team. All screwed in, everything is there. Now, cable management is another thing that kind of haunts a lot of people. So this is your 24 pin. It's just plug things in, right? Measure as many times as you want and cut as many times as you want when it comes down to cable management. The only thing that restricts you, and I can't see right now, on cable management is going to be if you are using supplies that you might be in limited supply of. What do I mean? I mean zip ties, right? Bread ties. If you don't have a lot of those, you measure 3 times so you can cut once, right? If you manage to get yourself an abundance of those, then you are good. Now, earlier I told you guys that I didn't need these SATA connections, but I opted to not cut them out of the equation. Why? The reasoning why is because I put myself in a position for the upgradability. If I decide that I want to have something connected via SATA, I could, right? Get it managed, get it into the cabinet, and then it's just there, out of the way. All right, guys. So again, we got everything plugged up. All those connections we talked about earlier, all plugged in. Power, sensor processing unit power, and then all of those miscellaneous peripherals. This is a USB connector so that through software, you can actually get utilization through what's there, but I digress. Even got my SATAs ran. Said managing your cables, however you want to do it. In my instance, I have one SATA running to each SATA. So SATA for data, SATA for power. SATA for data, SATA for power. SATA for data, SATA for power. So wherever the one is, the others can go, right? Just really clean. I don't need any of these. So it's just literally set at the bottom of the cabinet. And this is everything. Power button. Actually, hit the switch. We see that we have power. And before we even turn this on, let's talk about power. I said in my video I had a 650 watt. Excuse me, there was a 600 watt there. This is more than what I need. 450 would be adequate, but you know, Getting yourself a stronger power supply never hurts. You do not need to go balls to the walls with a crazy expensive power supply. So let's hit power. We got a spinning fan there. Got some flashing lights. White's probably going to be next. There's that white light indicating VGA, which tells me I don't have a graphics card connected. So that's all pretty much that there. So let's get that powered up next. All right, and we got the GPU plugged in. All GPUs have a hole in between them. So this little pole that's right here is just meant to be a little bit of support for it. So there's no wiggle or anything like that. Keeping in mind, this is a test bench. So in the traditional way that you would use a test bench, you would have it secure. But just in case, you were gesture talking and you accidentally punched anything, you don't want to puncture or break the connector that goes into the motherboard. So it comes with all the equipment you need to tighten things down. More than a screwdriver is not really necessary. The last piece of the rat's nest is going to be the PCIe power connectors. In my case, for the GPU, going to get this plugged in. And then we are good to go. We are done. If you're concerned about getting shocked or anything like that, it's not likely, but you can always hit the switch on the power supply. I did turn it off. And then when you guys are done, you just kind of tuck things the way you want to. Keep it in mind, this is in a cabinet. So, there's total air and control of everything. And we just don't have any concerns really. So it's not the most attractive, but it's an open test bench concept. Hit the switch for power. We've got power there. We turn that on. We've got lighting from the GPU. Even the graphics card that I have in here is more than I need. The card that I have under this is like a 960, but I'm going to use that for something else. Server build. As you can see, we don't have that white light because we have our graphics card plugged in. Now I want to go ahead and get this back in the cabinet. One thing I want to do is I want to run Street Fighter 6. This is a game that's not even out. Let's see if we could run Street Fighter 6 on this this build right here. We'll wrap this thing on up. And here we are, man, just like we started this video. Just like we started this video. I think I need to move this over to the right a little bit more, actually. I know I do. But yes, we are back loaded right into there. Everything there that we just took apart and put together. I can assure you that I've shot this in chronological order. At this point, everything has been a one take. It's been a one take, literally. Every transition has been one take. So you guys have seen truly behind the scenes content on how this all comes together. Now let's get in here so that I can power this thing up. First, let me hit the switch. Forgive me. Where are you at, switch? There we go. There we go. There's that. And get the computer turned on. And there's that. So I want to go ahead and get Street Fighter 6 loaded on this. I don't have it on here currently right now. I just have Fightcade. I have Dragon Ball Fighters. And I have Street Fighter 5. So I can get Street Fighter 4, all my fighting games pretty much. But I'm going to get 6 on here. Let's see how it runs. This is common. Anytime you unplug and plug in your unit, it's telling me Windows didn't load correctly, but I'll go ahead and I'll get this managed. You run the risk anytime you're tampering around with your hard drive that has your OS, but I'll get this all situated and we'll be right back. All right, so we've got the game loaded, Street Fighter 6. Just for some perspective, the GTX 1070 came out 2016. The i9 9900K came out 2018. So 2018, 2016, I believe this game is coming out on, let's see. I'm just doing some research. This is coming out on PS4. Yeah, looks like it is going to be coming out on PS4, right? So we know PS4 is some years old too. So again, earlier in the transitions, I said that the motherboard CPU combo on this was like $1,000, right? Obviously you can build similar combination and it would be stronger for about $450, dare I say, $500. You can get Ryzen combination that's gonna be really good and help you with like productivity and such like that. So what I'm gonna do is get resolution setting maxed out and everything with this 1080p and just play around with it a little bit, see how that goes. All right. Let's go to options. And I'm straight in like Japanese. Let's get this changed over. There we go. No idea. I want to go on the highest and I just want 1080p to be the option there for me. All right, great. So everything's changed over to English. Street Fighter 6. Great. So let me try to get something going in here. Street Fighter 6. Yeah, runs good, looks good. I mean, I'm in front of it, it's 1080p. My colors are off a little bit. I need to do some adjusting to this monitor. I do have some screen tearing, so probably need to turn on VSync. There's no probably to it. But yeah, man, this thing, I mean, runs it pretty good, you know, things look great on it. And jumping down to the settings, turning VSync on. Keeping in mind, I've got this thing set on max settings. It's borderless and it's windowed, but VSync is on. Yeah, that removed that screen tearing. Yeah, guys, I mean, and again, this is like max settings turned all the way up. So the same basic build that I put together with some old parts that I had, man, for fightcade is gonna make it so that I can play some Street Fighter 6. I don't know, you guys tell me what you think, man. Like, you know, if there's something that you wish I would have covered in this, please let me know. There's obviously some frame dips there. But having everything turned on or doing a preset of max settings is definitely going to tax. I'm sure when this game comes out, NVIDIA will be in a position where you can take this game and you can just modify it based on your hardware presets, like right here. Some frame dips going there. was like 50 something right here in gameplay. 59, 60. I mean, this is when it matters, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's 59. So some of those intro animations definitely dropping the frames on this thing, at least at the preset that I have. But again, let me know what you thought about the video. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace, God bless, and as I always say, max love.